Hello and welcome to the next PD induction on classroom management. As teachers, we all work very hard to prepare engaging and creative lessons and materials for our students. However, we all know that the hours spent in preparation are not the only factor that leads to a great lesson. Of equal importance are classroom management skills, which will be the focus of this induction. Renowned English language teaching scholar and practitioner Jim Scrivener highlights this point with the following quote: "Your most important job as a teacher is to create the conditions in which learning can take place. The skills of creating and managing a successful class may be the key to the whole success of a course." Now, as teachers, we all have diverse experiences of teaching different groups of students. From these experiences, we've gained our own knowledge of how to implement effective classroom management strategies. The strategies pointed out in this presentation may be familiar from your own teaching experience, and some may be more particular to our teaching context. Before we go into some of the classroom management issues teachers encounter in this programme, let's first acknowledge the positive aspects of teaching our students. Here are a few comments from 4 of our very own teaching staff.
You'll find that Saudi students are loyal once you get to know them.
If the lessons are interactive and engaging, the students are easily motivated.
They are shy at first, but fun and sociable once you get to know them, which of course makes teaching them fun as well.
Respect is a major part of Saudi culture. They show respect for their parents and elders, and so Saudi students have a high regard for their teachers.
So teaching at KSU can be a lot of fun. However, you do need to be aware of some of the common classroom management issues that teachers have noted. Let's take a listen.
Some students would ask me to mark them present even though they had come to class late or were absent, and this is against KSU policy.
Most of my students loved their mobile phones and sometimes found it difficult not to use them in class.
There were certain times during the semester that students lost their motivation, especially when they had exams from other departments.
As the students all share the same L1, Arabic, it was easy for them to slip into speaking it when, of course, they really needed to try to speak in English.
Effective classroom management strategies can help address some of the issues we've just heard, and this is what we'll now focus on. On your first day of class, it's a good idea to establish rules with your students. To give students ownership and encourage their cooperation, a useful technique that we highly recommend is to elicit from students what they think are appropriate classroom rules. Let's hear some examples of rules that some of our teachers established with their students.
At the beginning, my students and I agreed that they would try to speak and communicate in English as much as they can.
Both my students and I agreed that no food or drink is allowed in the classroom, only water.
We discussed that they will only use mobile phones for specific tasks.
We agreed to respect each other. Respect in the classroom encourages a positive learning environment. So, for example, only one person should be speaking at a time.
My students and I agreed that they would arrive to class on time.
We agreed to always come to class prepared with our course books and something to write with.
So, in addition to establishing and agreeing on some classroom rules, let's consider other factors that can positively impact your classroom management. Maximising resources, physical layout, clear instructions, effective monitoring, teacher talk time, a variety of interaction patterns, a good spread of attention, positive classroom dynamics. First, we have maximising resources. In your classroom, you have an interactive whiteboard and a regular whiteboard at your disposal. Through careful planning, these resources can create an engaging, motivating and effective classroom learning environment, which in turn keeps students on task. Let's take a closer look at the potential of the interactive whiteboard. Here is an example of one of our teacher's interactive whiteboard slides. We can see that she has utilised this resource to present clear instructions, timings, and interaction patterns for the displayed task. Also, the interactive whiteboard will allow you to plan interactive activities in which students can come up to the board and actually move the elements. Here, for example, students can come and drag the keywords on the right to their definition. Don't forget your whiteboard. You may use this to display the date, the agenda, and any incidental vocabulary that is brought up in the lesson, among other things. Again, this is a resource which can be used to engage students and keep them on task. Do keep in mind that not all the classrooms have the whiteboard and the interactive whiteboard on the same walls, and therefore physical layout is also an important factor to consider. Do think about how your seating arrangement can positively impact your classroom dynamics. If possible, choose a layout which ensures that all your students can see the interactive whiteboard and regular whiteboard. Most importantly, however, do try to choose a layout which maximises student communication. For example, this layout easily facilitates pair work, group work, and whole class interactions. Next, let's briefly address instructions. Consistent, clear instructions are the essence of setting up any successful activity in our classrooms. Ensuring that your students are clearly aware of what they're supposed to be doing at any given point during your lesson is critical to maintaining an effectively managed class. It's best to think of this aspect of classroom management as comprised of two elements, namely giving clear, simple instructions and following up with instruction checking questions. Focusing on instruction checking questions, or ICQs, we need to consider three main sub-questions: the what, the who, and the how. So, for example, after giving clear instructions, we should check that students understood the activity by asking the following questions. What are you doing? Who are you working with? And how much time do you have? These three questions, or whatever variations you may utilise, not only reiterate the key elements of the activity, but also serve to ensure that your instruction giving was sufficiently understood, thus facilitating your students' on-task behaviour. So, once we've given and checked instructions, we then need to ensure that our students are actually on task and completing the activity as we intend. We can check this through effective monitoring. How we carry out our monitoring depends on the activity itself and the stage the activity is at. At the beginning of any task, a good rule of thumb is to do a quick scan of the room and make sure that all your students are on task. During student-centred activities, such as a pair-speaking activity, it's good to monitor by moving around the classroom and using non-verbal cues to keep students on task. It is important, however, that we maintain a slight distance so that we do not impede students talking. Next up, teacher talk time. Do keep in mind that for many of our students, your class will be the only opportunity they have to meaningfully communicate in English. Therefore, it is crucial that we allow them as many opportunities as possible to communicate in our classes. This requires us to be mindful of our own talk time, or TTT. Indeed, classrooms characterised by high TTT are often boring, resulting in students disengaging from the lesson and perhaps engaging in off-task behaviour.
Therefore, a good rule of thumb to keep in mind is the 80-20 rule, meaning that 80% of your class time should be comprised of student talk time and 20% teacher talk time.
Since you've only got 20%, you want to aim for your teacher talk to be essentially specific and meaningful input, informative feedback, relevant correction, and well-chosen questions. By keeping this rule in mind, we can avoid superfluous repetition of instructions, redundant examples, and dithering commentary. Next, let's consider interaction patterns. Planning for a variety of interaction patterns appropriate to the different stages in your lesson is necessary in order to maximise student engagement and communication in the lesson. Although sometimes an activity will call for individual work, for example the reading task, it is also important to include activities that call for either pair, group or whole class work, as this will maximise student participation and communication. Moving on, let's talk about maintaining a good spread of attention in your classroom. In any class, we always find those students who are enthusiastic and eager to answer all questions and respond to any prompt in a lesson, while there are others who are far shyer and hesitant to participate. Effective spread of attention ensures all students are participating in the lesson and that they are on task. One popular strategy amongst our teaching staff is to use the name card system, in which each of your students' names is on an index card. Throughout the lesson, whenever a response from your class is required, be it for feedback to questions or to demonstrate an activity, these cards can be used to help you call on all of your students. Lastly, effective classroom management is ultimately maintained by positive classroom dynamics. It's important to have positive and appropriate interactions with and among our students, and maintain open and clear lines of communication with them. So, practically speaking, this might mean that you frequently obtain feedback from your students about how they are perceiving your lessons. In other words, you want to find out what they generally like about your lessons, what they find challenging, and what they'd rather you change. You can do this in a very informal and anonymous way by simply handing out post-it notes and asking your students for feedback. Such feedback can allow you to either tweak your lessons accordingly or explain to your students why it is good for them to do certain activities in a particular way. So, as we can see, classroom management involves utilising a number of aspects, from the resources such as the IWB, the whiteboard and the physical layout of the room, to the relationships you establish with your students and the interactions you share. We hope this presentation has reviewed some of the key elements of classroom management and that you feel better prepared to manage your class. Starting in a new programme with its own unique teaching and learning context may be initially overwhelming. However, do be assured that you have a number of resources at your disposal willing to support you if classroom management issues do arise, or if you simply have a related question. Perhaps your first recourse would be your fellow teaching staff. You'll come to know teachers who have been with us at KSU for a number of years, who are well experienced in dealing with our students. Secondly, your mentor. He or she is also an experienced KSU teacher and will be able to help you if you have any classroom management questions. Next, the Student Affairs Unit, which deals directly with students and therefore is aware of the issues that commonly occur in classrooms. Please consult them for more detailed procedures you can follow based on KSU policy. Also, the ELSD has a well-stocked resource room with many books that you may find useful in offering classroom management strategies. And finally, us, the Professional Development Unit. Please feel free to stop by our office at any point if you need any help. That marks the end of the classroom management induction. Thank you for listening.